Ontario Outdoors here. We got ATC Outdoors. And we're going to be doing an ice fishing gear review and basically a video on all the essentials you're going to need this ice season. Now, let's talk lures. So, as we've been doing from the beginning of the video, we're going to start with panfish, beginning of the season, or the ice. I like to start with a super finesse setup, and there's nothing, in my opinion, more finesse than a tiny, tiny, tiny tungsten toad. These things are very, very versatile. Now, this right here plays in with the whole pack light thing on first ice, because you can have a bucket full of these and it weighs like nothing. Anywho, so when you're fishing tungstens, especially like little tiny tungstens, there's tungsten spoons, everything. But today we're talking tungsten jigs. You can run a straight tungsten jig, which is barely visible on a camera, and you can run a tungsten jig with a soft plastic on the end of it. Now, it really all depends on where you're fishing. You can put soft plastics on these. It's not going to focus, is it? Yeah, you can put a soft plastic on these. I have a little like a maggot kind of thing. Or you can fish live bait. You can put wax worms, mealworms, super worms, crickets, everything. I've fished with crickets multiple times because you can buy them at a pet store. Super worms too. Anyways, yeah, so bluegill, crappies, even bass. I've seen people catch pike on these. What makes a pike want to eat something that small beats me. Yeah, so that's starting out with the smallest thing you can fish with, besides a bear hook. Second off, this is not the lures that come in this package. Those tungstens were. I just stuck these in here because I needed to have somewhere to put them. Now, this is what I've been using today. Well, not today, but this week. I've been using this open water fishing. I've been fishing smaller jigs with a plastic worm. And they're a pretty subtle finesse bait. They're really good for crappies, in my opinion. That's what I've been catching, crappies and bass on them. I might use this exact jig through this season, but we'll find that out afterwards. Now, another thing I've been using is that same plastic on that jig right there on these little Roadrunner underspin jigs. And right now we have a crappie tube on there, and crappie tube, as it says in the name, is good for crappie. You can catch bluegills, bass, pretty much everything will eat a crappie tube. I was out catching brown trout on these a while back. But yeah, it's a kind of like a one lure catch-all bait. We'll fix that later. For another thing, we're going to talk about finesse stuff first, so we'll go here. So right here, I have pre-rigged setups made by my brother. This is a triple rig, but just basically, yeah, it's basically a snelled hook, and this one's got 3 on it. But you can put these snelled hooks on your line, put a split shot like a foot above it, dangle them down with a minnow, crappies, bass, walleye, everything bites that. That's a pretty finesse way of fishing. I've caught pike and everything on those. Yeah, so going from there, we'll size up. This is my little micro box. I'm gonna put everything in here, but holds all my micro baits. And right here we have something I've been wanting to buy for a while, but I haven't been able to find them locally. I had to go way out of town for this. These VMC tungsten flies, and essentially it's the same as those tungsten jigs I had, but it's got hair on it, and it's like a little fly. And these, it almost looks like midge that you would use fly fishing, but they're made for ice fishing. I find these are good in ponds for when you're fishing bluegills, crappies, whatnot.
Yeah.
To me, I find these represent like a mosquito or a mosquito larvae or something small in the water, anything. Yeah, those work really good. We have a medium-sized hair, kind of like a hair jig, almost like a bucktail, but really small. Good for ice fishing, for crappies. Bluegills will eat this too if they're bigger. We have hair jig, a little bit bigger. It's pretty good. Crappies. Yeah, my go-to lure for ice fishing is hands down the Lindy Rattling Flyer. Now this is a small one. I use this for crappies and small bass, even bigger bass. A lot of stuff will eat this. You catch pretty much anything on it, but around here I'll use it for crappies and bass. Yeah, and then like I said, you can rig up just literally any jig head with plastics. This is like, I don't know, it's kind of like a tube jig, but it's not. That works really good. This I just rigged up because, you know, it's whatnot, you know, use it for crappies, and yeah, it's just kind of something stupid you can put together. Takes nothing. It's literally like a 10-cent lure. Here is a vertical tungsten jig. A little bit different presentation than that other one. That's like a teardrop I showed you in the first one. But this is a vertical style tungsten jig, and I just put a little worm on it so you can just dangle it, and little finesse tail action. Crappies love that. These have been around for years. They're these little, it's like the beetle spin jigs, but it's just the jig and the beetle thing. But yeah, those work really good through the ice, I find. Again, tube jigs work really good. And then this, Berkeley came out with the Max Sense, and essentially it's a power bait minnow, but they're really scented, and I find they have a different texture, and the fish love those. Really hard to find the Max Sense, but if you, well, for $10 a pack, if you really want to, you can rip the tails off really small and put them on a really thin jig, really small jig head. This is like a 1/32 or 1/64 ounce. And yeah, it's just like a little finesse tail. Bluegills, crappies, bass, everything that swims will bite that. I've caught walleye on those, everything. We take another step up. We have jigging wraps. Now this is a small jigging wrap. Looks kind of blue on the camera, but it's actually green. Jigging wraps are really good for walleye, but they're more of a, they're a draw the fish in bait, I find, more than a catch the fish on a subtle jigging motion. You can get these things to just shake, but these are a search bait, so every time you jig it, it's gonna like shoot off and then like shoot out and around, and it's gonna go all over the place. These things, I've had these things shoot out like 6 feet away from the hole, and then yeah, it basically just draws the fish in. I like to have one of these set up and then have a jigging spoon, which I'll show you next. I like to have a jigging spoon right next to me so I can draw the fish in, and then switch over to my jigging spoon rod and start shaking my jigging spoon with a minnow head. Really good for walleye. Yeah, so taking a step up, we go to my all-time favorite lure again. We have the Lindy Rattling Flyers. I do believe these are, I think, yeah, a 3/16. I'll show you right here once I get them all together. Lindy Rattling Flyer 3/16 ounce spoons. These have been around for quite a while, but I find these are the go-to bait. A lot of guys are going to use this here, the Buckshot Rattle Spoon. From where I'm from, I haven't seen anybody using anything but these when they're ice fishing for walleye. I've seen maybe one other guy use these, but yeah, a lot of guys are using this. Now, I bought pretty much all the colors. I think I'm missing one color. I've used this. I've had luck on this, but not as much. I bought this. Never tried it, but it's a good color in the winter. Represents the shiners, kind of like same fish you're putting on your dad's stick or your tip up. But my go-to, hands down, my favorite ice fishing lure of all time is the Lindy Rattling Flyer Rainbow. I'll shiner. I think it's called a rainbow shiner or something. Yeah, no, it's just a TG rainbow. Anyways, yeah, so Lindy Rattling Flyer Rainbow, hands down, best lure I've ever used for walleye. Last season, exactly right here, I showed you this lure earlier. Let me unhook it here. That's a Lindy Rattling Flyer. That's a Lindy Rattling Flyer. Exact same size, exact same lure. I got a 30-inch walleye on that last season, and no sonar, no nothing, no electronics, just sitting there jigging, freezing, you know. Same old
ice
same
fishing.
Ice fishing. Traditional ice fishing. So yeah, that covers the jigging spoons. Now we're going to go into a little bit more of something different that I've never done before. But I see a lot of guys using it. Especially like down Minnesota, Wisconsin area. And that would be rattle baits. Or jigging baits. I don't know. Everybody calls them something different. Right here we have the Rapala Slab Wrap. These are pretty good little lures. There's bigger sizes, smaller sizes. I bought this size because I find it matches the size of lures that the fish tend to go after a bit more around here. So this is the Shad Wrap. It's got a more of a narrow, like long, slender, narrow build to it. I find, I don't know, if you're fishing earlier in the season, this is pretty good. Like something like that. Reminds me of a jigging wrap, but with hard body bait. Take a look at that.
Yeah.
Good rattle to them. Nice hooks on them. Raffle always does really good with the hooks.
Hard to hear.
A little hard to hear. Fish can hear it underwater. I've tested them in my test tank and they're really loud. Yeah, so we have that. Let's see, I'll put that together for me while I'm doing this. Next up, we've got the Ultralight Ripping Wrap, upside down, glow in the dark. This lure is tiny. This is probably the tiniest lipless crankbait I've ever seen. I don't think they make them smaller than this. They might. Who knows? Yeah. So this is the Ultralight Ripping Wrap. I can get that to focus here. It's hard to focus on that lure. Yeah, there it is. There. Really nice lure. It's got a little dip in the top, so it gets a nice...
That also glows, doesn't it?
Yeah, it glows in the dark, yeah. It's got a nice, really nice rattle. I don't know if you can hear that, but yeah, it rattles really good. I put it in the test tank, just little subtle motions, like just a little tiny twitch, and it's just rattling away. Glow in the dark. Really small bait, like this compared to the size of my thumb. Yeah, it's tiny. So, I find that'll work really good when you're on more of a like a pressured system. I know they don't like rattles so much when they're really pressured, but some days it doesn't really much matter about the rattle. It's the size of the bait. You got to downsize a lot. Even in the summer, I like to downsize and finesse some days when I've got some high pressure fish. So yeah, we've got that, and then we've got a little bit of an upsize here. Same thing as the Ultralight Ripping Wrap, but way bigger. This is not made by Rapala. This is a Yalleye. I think it's a pretty new company. This is the Yalleye something. I don't remember what it is. But yeah, it's just a very, very tall-bodied shad imitation lipless crankbait. They do some pretty nice paint jobs on there. They got sparkles all through them. But it's pretty sizable. I mean, it's like, you know, pretty big. It's got big hooks, good for catching them walleyes. Yeah, so lipless crankbait, pretty good. And now the Buckshot. Everybody's using the Buckshot. I got my buddy fishing with me last year. He showed me this one. I've never used it before. It's the Northland Glow Shot, right? Yeah. Anyways, it's basically the Buckshot, but instead of having your rattle, you have a little slot in the middle, and you put these little tiny glow sticks in there. There's 3 colors of glow sticks. They got red, green, and chartreuse. Yeah, so you just pop a glow stick in the back there, and then when you're done with your glow stick or you want to change your color, you got this little tab that comes with it, and you just go like this, and it pops the glow stick out. So that's pretty good one. I'm going to try this year. I think it's going to catch some fish. Now, if you want to go a little bit more cheaper, rattle baits are pretty expensive. That Yawleye rattle bait cost me $10, and this ultralight ripping wrap cost me $10. Now, that Yawleye rattle bait, $10 rattle bait. This here is a $3 rattle bait from the dollar store. Ironically enough, I've caught more fish on this $3 rattle bait than I've caught on this Yawleye rattle bait. And I'm not saying it's because this is a better lure than this, it's just because I'll use this wherever because it's cheap. I don't like using this because it's $10 lure.
Yeah, so that's proof you can cheap out sometimes.
Yeah, dollar store, Dollarama. And those hooks on there, those are really good hooks, I'll be honest with you. Like, these things, those things will go like right through your thumb. Like they're pretty sharp. I've had this go through my finger multiple times. Yeah. This, I forget what these are, but they're just a little, what they, basically essentially what it is, it's a rattleless, like a rattle, I don't know, it's got no rattle, but it's a spoon with no rattle. They're just a little thin piece of lead, painted up, you know. I put this little feathered hook on there because, you know, makes it look a little bit more natural, appealing. Those, apparently, from what I've been hearing, work really good when the fish are sensitive to the rattle. They don't like the rattle. You throw on one of those, they like them. I do believe Northland or something makes this, the Flutter Spoon, I think it's called. It's almost like the dinner bell, but different company, different style too. This is a lunker hunt. Just little metal spoon, and it comes with that little feather on there. These comes in like, they come in like a pack of 4 or 5. Nice little lure. It's got a pretty reflective little strip on there. Good for when the fish are not liking the rattles. Yeah. Now, if you're fishing for something a bit bigger, say lake trout, these things are pretty popular for lake trout fishing, and I'm not 100% sure how many people use these through the ice. But a lot of guys use big tube jigs through the ice for lake trout, so I wouldn't see why these wouldn't work. I think you catch walleye through the ice. I've been catching walleye. I've caught more walleye on these in the past couple months than I have on anything else. But yeah, these are just bucktails. This is probably a Northland one. This is probably a Northland one. Really good little jigs. That way you don't have to keep switching out plastics like twister tails and stuff. For example, this is a big twister tail I was using the other day, looking for pike. Got it on a big football jig head. You could even use that to the ice, and you might, like, I feel like that would be a good bait for burbits because it's got that nice big fluttery tail. Good for burbits, and probably get walleye, trout, everything on there. Yeah, I have this too. This is the Berkeley Power Bait Minnows. They're a pretty natural looking presentation. I have it on this little silver head here, so it's got a little bit of shine to it. If you want to go a little bit cheaper and you don't want to go out and buy all these big lures, just go out and buy yourself a pack of jig heads, buy yourself some Power Bait Minnows, and yeah, you're not going to catch as many, but you'll still catch fish. You might even catch more. Who knows? Depends on where you are.
That's really all it's about, is just location. I mean,
yeah, location's key.
You could have all these fancy stuff you got here, like $10 lures right here and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I've caught lots of fish through the ice. I've never used a flasher, underwater camera, nothing. This year I finally got myself like a sonar kind of thing. I'm doing, I got like a graph or whatever, I can't even remember what it is. I just got it, it was cheap. It's literally just an old fish finder for, I don't know, off a boat or something. Didn't even have anything. I had to build a transducer mount out of a fishing pole. So, I mean, if it works, it works, right? It just kind of shows me if there's fish under me or not. But, who knows? Yeah, so I think that pretty much covers it for gear. Actually, no, I got a couple more things. I made some lures this year. I do believe the company Lindy makes these lures. They're called perch talkers and wally talkers, whatever they are. Essentially, they're like almost like an inline spinner with no blade. For example, I have a really rigged up one here. Here's an inline spinner where I cut the blade off. Pretty cheap little way of making them. Here's another example of an inline spinner where I cut the blade off. This one has a blade on it, a really small Colorado blade, and it's got a nice bead on there. It's a fully customized one, and it's really good because the way they use these, there's also a like this VMC one, and it's got a big chain on it, and it's got a little hook on the bottom where you can put a minnow head. And the way it is that little flash and the bead up there, it's going to attract the walleye in. They're going to come in and they're going to key in on either your hook with a minnow head or this big feather, because when you jig it, it's going to be dancing around and they're going to key in on that. And if it's a subtle bite, they're going to just come up and they're just going to like nip that, and that's how you get them. Here's another custom one I made here. This one, I really like this one.
Yeah, that is some nice colors.
Yeah, this is a spinner that I completely took apart. I forget what kind of spinner it was. It was just some cheap one. I had a Panther Martin spinner that broke, and Panther Martin makes these little things on them, weight, lead piece, but it's kind of like in the shape of a minnow head almost. So I put 3 oil slick beads on there, kind of different than most people use, but I've had some luck on that kind of color. And then I put the thing from the Panther Martin, and then I got a little tiny slide here, spring slider, and then I crimped that down after I put the hook on, put the spring slide on, and yeah, and then those bounce and shimmer and shake, and I'll have a minnow head on there, and I think I might get some fish on that this year. Other than that, there's not much else. You can use inline spinners. I've heard of people using inline spinners through the ice. I've used inline spinners through the ice for like rainbow smelt, just to attract them in with the flash, and then they come in and just nip a little eyeball off the hook or something, a little piece of meat. But yeah, other than that, that pretty much covers lures. I guess we can get into a little bit in depth on some terminal tackle, I'd say. So this is a pretty quick one. It's pretty brief, but yeah. So there's a couple different things we can do. It's all terminal hook and sinker. So you can have a nice hook. You can have them run straight on your line or snelled, like I showed you earlier. But I like using these drop shot swivel sinkers, and they got a little tiny swivel on there. It's just a straight sinker. This one's bent. But basically these, if you're fishing soft bottom, these will sink into the mud. Fish won't even see that there. And then your hook's just floating. I like to tie this on about 6 to 12 inches above it. And then your minnow's just sitting there swimming around on your hook in a circle. And the fish just come and smoke that. Now you can use drop shot sinkers. You can use bell sinkers. You can use, I don't exactly remember what these are called, but yeah, these sinkers. And yeah, split shots, you know, the basics. But yeah, I guess that pretty much covers everything for lures and tackle. So hey guys, I'd like to say thanks for watching. This is going to be a 4-part series, so stay tuned for the new videos this week. We'll be posting every 1 to 2 days for the rest of the week until this series is done. And hopefully we'll have some ice pretty soon so we can start putting out some actual fishing videos.